this session. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. We'll give people a few minutes to start coming in, but if people want to put their name and where they're joining from in the chat function on the bottom right-hand screen, we'll take a look, and it'll be good to get connected with all of you. All right. Well, I think we can just sort of jump in and kick things off. Welcome, everybody, to today's session, which is crafting and delivering the perfect pitch. I'm your moderator, Annie Pace Scranton, and I'm going to let these two lovely ladies introduce themselves in just a minute, but a little bit about me. I run a PR company called Pace Public Relations. We've been in business for 13 years. Prior to that, I worked as a print journalist and TV news producer for about 10 years, all in New York, mostly for cable networks like CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, et cetera. And my agency focuses on getting our clients prominently featured in the media. So today's session, it makes a lot of sense for me because what do we do all day? We pitch. We pitch the media. Pitching can mean a lot of different things. Pitching investors, pitching the media, but that's really what we want to get into here today. We're hoping that you all will walk away with some tips and tactics and tools that you can use in any scenario where you're trying to pitch yourself and put your best foot forward. So everybody should feel free during today's session to populate questions into the chat function. There will be time at the end where I can run through them, and we'd love to hear from each and every one of you. So if we can start, please, with Kim Roxy, CEO of Lamique Beauty. Would love for you to introduce yourself, tell the panel a little bit about yourself, and maybe end on what your elevator pitch is. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Annie. I'm Kim Roxy, Kimroxie, and I'm the founder of Lamique Beauty. Lamique is an acronym that stands for love and makeup and kindness. Like my co-panelist here, Hannah said, she said she loved that. So I had to tell you that today.
So good.
I was like, Lamique. So, it's makeup with meaning because your beauty has meaning. I believe that beauty is revealed and not applied. And so for me, when I think about pitching, it's like every day. So Annie, when you just introduced yourself, you reminded me that I have a whole bachelor's degree in public relations. And so when I think about, the point around PR and pitching, I never really made the connection to the fact that maybe, that's helped me in my pitching of my business. And it does. And I'm just excited to be able to speak today on the panel. Lamique is a clean color cosmetic brand. We make most of our makeup right in Houston, Texas, in my hometown. We make paraben-free, talc-free makeup because my mother passed away from metastatic breast cancer. And there's been so much research with the connection between parabens and breast cancer. And I just want to give people the makeup that I know my mom would have wanted to have. And so I'm excited to be on the panel today.
Kim, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Hannah Pryor, workplace expert, founder of the Priority Group. Please tell us about yourself and what your elevator pitch is.
I would be happy to. I was pretty proud of my company name until I heard Lamique, and I'm like, that's so good. That's such a good name. My name is, again, Hannah Pryor. I spent 14 years in the staffing industry before switching to founding my current company, which is mostly centered on workplace performance. And we do that through executive coaching, keynote speaking, training, workshops. So what I think makes the value of my background a little bit different from the other two on the panel, and hopefully helpful to round out the perspective, is I worked in staffing, which is heavily based on interviewing, pitching yourself for a job, pitching clients on who they should be hiring. And so a lot of my perspective comes from the individual side. And, for 14 years, I was in sales. It was 100% commissions every day. Every conversation was some type of pitch. And so I'm excited to bring that perspective. As far as my quick elevator pitch, I'll give you my one sentence. I will tell people that right now, my firm and me especially, I teach people how to embrace and own their awkward so they can be more bold, take more risks, and up level their workplace performance. That's what I'm here on this earth to do.
Wow, as a professional publicist, you nailed it. Very good. Very good.
Thank,
Elevator,
thank you
elevator
very much. Yeah.
So, I always think that before you can actually start pitching, you have to know what it is you're selling. And so I believe that that starts with, of course, drafting some goals and setting goals and intentions for yourself. But to me, I talk a lot about personal branding, and I think it really applies to setting out your own personal brand, which I think a lot of people may say to themselves, well, I don't have a personal brand, or why would it be valuable for me to have a personal brand? I work at a company, I'm not an entrepreneur, et cetera. But it's important to all of us actually, because it kind of helps to chart our own future. So Kim, wanted to start with you. What does personal branding mean to you, and how and when do you feel like you found your why, like your purpose? And curious if it was related to that goal setting.
Yeah. So I think for me, personal branding is a holistic point of view, is how I look at it. You might have noticed that I like spell my name when I started introducing myself. I actually do that every time I introduce myself. And it started because I had done an interview before, Annie, and for the media, and it was for television, and they spelled my name wrong. And this
Hmm.
was like, and I was like, they just spelled it Roxy. I was like, Roxy is the most dominant way to spell Roxy. I was like, oh, that won't happen again. So I always spelled my name. And it's actually turned into a personal branding thing where I have been on platforms before and people have said, oh, I can't wait till she introduces herself. Or I've been in places where people have heard me introduce myself and they actually spell my name with me. And for my 6-year-old daughter, as she learned how to spell, she knew how to spell my name before she knew how to spell her own, because she heard me say it over and over again. To me, that's personal branding, right? Like it's just a place where people like know how to share your story with once they hear it one time. And I think that that's what it's about for me. I look at it like holistically. I look at it from a place of with Lamique, what it stands for. That's something that people start to spread, but people take their own take on it. So when you look at Lamique, love and makeup and kindness, that could resonate with everybody a little different. And to me, I love the fact that everybody adds their own flavor to it and they spread that message. And so, as a young girl growing up who when I went to the makeup counter for my senior prom, walking away looking like Casper, the friendly ghost, because my face was so ashy, and and they couldn't match my makeup right. That is something that I took that with 75% of the beauty products marketed to women of color are toxic. Any woman with melanated skin, the products marketed to us are 75% toxic. I took both of those sort of whys and my mom passing from breast cancer, like took all of that together and took that and said, this is about to be my mission, to make a better makeup line. And so that's how I look at it. I look at it as a holistic standpoint, my why, but I have additional whys, because as I hear from my customers, as I do more research, my why is layered and layered and layered. And for me, a person who wants to give up every day because this stuff is hard, I have to have these additional layers of whys that keeps me going. And I'm just keeping it real because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And so for me, it's just those additional whys that keep me going.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree with you. I think like entrepreneurship is one of the greatest paths anyone can follow. But if you don't have that why and that real meaning behind what you're doing, it's going to be a long and hard road. It's already is going to be a long and hard road, but it's going to be a lot longer and a lot harder
Period.
if you're not really passionate about it. And that has to be dovetailed into who we are, because it is that personal path forward. Henna, would love to hear your thoughts on personal branding and sort of how that came about for you. Because you had more of like a corporate kind of career background,
Yeah.
and now you have your own.
Yeah, I had a very corporate background. I started my career at Ernst& Young, a Big Four public accounting firm. So this chatterbox was an auditor. That's hard for people to believe, but that was my first couple of years out of college. And the way I think about personal brand is I think of it as a tool that bridges the gap between how we think we are seen and how we want to be seen. So I'm 40. I remember early when I was a kid, and especially early in my career, this wasn't really a thing. We didn't really have to worry about what somebody across the country, across the globe thought of us because there was really not an easy way for them to figure that out or even wonder or even know who we were. Now everything has changed. So the way the world works is if we don't drive that story, if we don't drive that this is who I am and this is how I want to be seen, the world is going to drive that story for us. They are going to decide who we are. And that could be this person, doesn't have any presence. They must be a hermit. They must be a wallflower. They must not be on the internet, right? Or this could be based on these couple of things that I've seen or heard, this must be the type of person they are. So to me, it's kind of bridging that gap. Can we put ourselves back in the driver's seat? And for me, as it relates to my why, I'll just say sort of simply that I'm a firstborn generation of immigrant parents. I was deeply insecure most of my life. I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be Jennifer, Samantha, Jessica. Like, come on, why has it got to be Henna, right? And so I was laughing at Kim's story because I introduced myself now as Henna, not Helen, Henna, not Hannah, right? Henna, like the tattoo, right? I have to clarify that over and over. But for me, the journey has been embracing all of my own awkwardness, embracing all of my own imperfection. And as I did that day by day, success came faster and faster and faster. And when I the shackles of other people's approval and just trying stuff, that's when my workplace performance shot through the roof. And so it became a mission, my why, to bring some of those principles in as many ways as possible to other people.
I love that. One of my favorite quotes, kind of related to what you're talking about, is from Alice in Wonderland, and it goes, "If you don't know which road, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." And I just love that
Yes.
because it's like you gotta chart your own course here. Otherwise, people will kind of plan it for you, whether you want them to or
Mm-hmm.
not. So my next question is: both of you have, I think, very strong personal brands, but you also have businesses that kind of have their own brand. So how important do you think it is to have a distinction between both? And have you found that sort of having both of those brands is helpful, or has it been challenging in some ways? Kim, any thoughts on that?
I think, you know, when I think about my company's brand, I think of it as a collaboration of my customers, my stakeholders, my investors. Like I did a crowdfunding campaign to launch my brand. So, like, we have so many people who have contributed to what we've done. When we named some of our first products, our customers helped us name them. So, when I think about our company's branding, I think of a collaboration, I think of a collective, I think of a cooperative. So, everybody's putting in and pitching in on what Lamique is and the why and what we stand for and why we're here. And so if I have a customer or someone who is even just not a customer, maybe just someone who's in our community, because we have people just in our community who are down for Lamique and they may not have even purchased Lamique yet, but they're down for the values. They love the way we, show up, and they like being involved in it, and they can see themselves. And so, they contribute, right? And so I think that I just don't try to hold it as my baby and like, I only dress my baby. I only get my baby together. And to be honest, I took it on personally. I watched when I like for my child. I'm kind of the same way. I kind of have a community daughter. Like everybody sort of contributes to Loretta's success, because it just I just find that to be less burdening. And I just think as a business, for that brand of my business, I don't want to be sort of tasked with making everything up for my business. I just don't. That's to me is too heavy. Like it's too much. I
Mhm.
want it to be a collaboration, and so that's what I find with that. And I also show people how Lamique is helping me. So personally, Lamique is helping me be a better person. Lamique has helped me be more patient. It helped me be more kind. Beauty is revealed, not applied. Those are the things of beauty that have come up inside of me because of Lamique. And so I kind of also voice and share how Lamique has made me a better person and how I use it even for the product wise. Like I just used it and y'all saw it happen in person. Y'all saw these no eyebrows turn into eyebrows with this brow kit, right? Y'all just saw
Before
it
our very
happen.
eyes.
My
Yeah.
Yes, before your very eyes, you saw that. Like I have a form of alopecia, so you saw the hair loss, and then all of a sudden I got eyebrows, right? And so I just showed that like I'm a consumer of it too. I'm a user of it too. I'm not just like the person who's orchestrating everything. I'm a user too. I collaborate, I give, and then I want my other people, my customers, my community to give to it too.
It's such a beautiful way you talk about entrepreneurship because I think, entrepreneurship for me has, until very recently, has been a lot very solo sort of like activity. And now that we're bigger and I have senior members of the team who are on this journey with me, it definitely feels less lonely, but it's such a beautiful way to think about it. Hannah, I think you and I are similar in that our businesses are sort of ourselves, it's sort of wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wondering sort of
Yeah.
how do you distinguish yourself versus priority group?
Right. I was just thinking that as you said that, which is some days, and this is me being honest about being on the journey, just like Kim was, some days it would be nice to be able to just let the product service solution shine. And I would just, be in the back shuffling papers around. That's not the business that I'm in. I'm in the business of I am the voice. I am often the brand. I have partners in my business. I have people on my team, but largely Priority Group is figureheaded by Hannah Pryor and the voice that she brings to the conversation. And so mine is much more tangled up than other businesses that are more product focused or maybe a tech company. It's much more tangled. That is amazing in that it's wonderful to have that level of influence if things are going well. And it can also be really scary when you tie your identity up in the approval of your business and the business is you. And so, what I would say the distinction for me between the business and myself is just being very clear that the reason it's a business, the reason I created it as Priority Group and not just Henna Pryor everywhere, is because I really wanted the feeling of the focus being the movement, the mission, the change I want to see in the world. And I know that my tendency as a human is to take all the entire world on my shoulders, and creating a group and building an infrastructure for a group made it so that I kind of forced a structure that gave me some accountability on this isn't the Henna show. You might be some of the voice, you might be some of the idea, you might be the ideator or the creator of some things, but let the movement be the star. Let the message be the star. And for me, that distinction really helps also keep my boundaries when I need to have Henna over here, Priority Group over here, but also gives people something to latch onto that is beyond me. If I, pass away unexpectedly tomorrow, God forbid, I want something that lives beyond me and the structure of the company. I hope that people remember the company for what they did.
Absolutely. It's a way you can scale too, right? You can't replicate yourself, but you
Yeah,
can keep
for
growing
sure.
your business and growing that brand. And so much of personal branding is really related to our digital footprint, like you were saying earlier, Hannah. And we all immediately Google someone or check them out on social. So Kim, my question to you is how did you decide what to focus on when you were building your online presence? And I just want to say we were both sort of talking, we were all talking before this started that we just love the about section on Lamique's site. And I love reading about what Lamique stands for and the values and having that mission really clearly stated. I really appreciated that because it gave me a very clear glimpse into the brand.
Yeah. So when it came to e-commerce, so let me tell you a little bit about my background too. I started in the beauty business at 19 at a makeup counter when I was in college. And I worked that for 2 years. I thought after college I was going to go get a real job in PR, specifically.
Mhm.
Annie, you didn't hire me. So I had to make myself a job. And so I got no job offers. And so but I did really well at the makeup counter. And so my manager was like, you should, do this. And it's not because I did makeup well, because I had never done anybody's face before. I just knew how to connect with women well. And so she was like, you should figure out how to make this your job. And so I was in Atlanta going to Clark Atlanta University. I moved back to Houston, and at 21 I opened up my own makeup shop, and I ran that for 14 years. So I did makeup, I did eyebrows in my store every day, very service based. I started to create and deal and experiment with makeup products. But in 2020, March 2020, I launched the Lamique brand by itself solely. So going right into e-commerce with the pandemic, feel like launching with the pandemic. What did I do? Because you can turn a website on, but you can hear crickets. Like just turning the website on doesn't do anything. And I was like, we worked so hard on this website. Here it goes. And it was like crickets.
Mhm.
And then I was like, and at the same time, the whole world is like, oh, it's going to be shutting down. I was like, what is happening? So what did I do? I turned on my camera on the first Friday of April 2020 on a Friday night, and I turned on my camera and said, "Welcome to Friday Night Live." That's exactly what I did. And I started showing women how to put on their makeup. I did my brows just like I did in front of y'all, in front of them. And I started showing women how to do their makeup for themselves because they were going to have to be on Zoom and all those other places. And so that started it. And I sold like like what I would usually, I remember back when I used to have my store, I sold what I would sell in a day there in person, like online, in just a few hours on a Friday Night Live. And I was like, oh, this is something here. And that built the momentum for my e-commerce, was doing live shopping shows. And I just did one last Friday night. I have still been doing them every Friday night. My co-host is my 6-year-old daughter, Loretta, and she helps me because Annie, when you think about it, this, and Hannah, this too. If a child cannot understand your business, then actually nobody can understand it, right? And so what I found was my daughter, I took over her room to do my lives. So that's why she thought she was my supervisor and why she could come in on my lives. And then, but she would ask all the right questions. I would be doing my brows and she would be like, how much did you put on your brush? What kind of brush are you using? I mean, she would ask me every question that a person would ask. So I started to realize she was asking all the right questions. So I would just answer her. And literally the audience would be like, that's exactly what they needed to know. And they would have enough understanding because I had been in it. I might have, been talking too high level. And so she would break it down. And so she's been my co-host, and that's how I've been able to do it. I've also used quizzes. So I have a quiz on my website that asks you the right questions, 5 questions that can recommend the right brow kit for you so you never buy the wrong product. We've used things like that, but the live shows, the quizzes, even virtual try on technology we've used for people to get the right product. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that we've done.
Well, the thought that keeps running through my head as you're talking is you are a very authentic and genuine person. And I feel like you just saying, welcome to Friday Night Live, and then bringing your daughter in, like, that's you. I mean, I don't even know you, but that's you, obviously. And so I feel like that's why it really resonated with people. Right. And I think that that's a key message of personal branding and then pitching. It's like, be true to yourself, right? Like, don't try to mold yourself into the room you're walking into. I mean, be prepared, do your research, etc. But be yourself, because if they don't like who you are, then it's not going to be a good fit or a good marriage anyway.
That is so good. I'm gonna use that one. Don't try to mold yourself into the room you're walking into. I love that.
Thank you. So Hannah, I think too, like something I was just thinking about was, you know, part of personal branding, but then also getting comfortable with pitching, whether you're media or investors, is feeling really comfortable about sharing your accomplishments and your wins. And I think sometimes as women, it's a little more challenging for us because it feels like we're bragging or we're being boastful or whatever. And men don't have that problem, right? Like they just don't have it. Not all women have it, but men do not have that problem. So how do you think about getting comfortable with sharing your wins, whether it's in person or for your online presence? Any tips or advice there?
Yes. Oh, you're asking my probably favorite question in the world, because this is one of the things that I am loudly passionate about is women sharing their wins. In fact, my second book, I'm already going to tell you, I'm going to call it Professional Hype Squad. So nobody steal the name. I feel like we should all be hyping each other up and hyping ourselves up so much more than we do. So my tips would be this. First thing is there's a mantra that I live by, and I hope everybody else will write this down, put it on a post it, put it next to their work computer. And that is this: it isn't bragging if you've done it. It isn't bragging if you've done it. Okay. It's not self promotional if you've done it. It is a statement of fact. You are bringing visibility to an activity that has occurred, that in this increasingly hybrid, decentralized, remote world, people can't see. So you are bringing visibility to a statement of fact. I think if we can just say that to ourselves over and over, we'll start to at least feel better about it mentally from a mindset perspective. It's not self promotional, it is bringing visibility to a statement of fact. That's number one. Number two, and this is a big one, is we too often wait to be in the room for the first time to have those words come out of our mouth, right? So
Mhm.
I'm trying to pitch my new little makeup idea to Kim, right? And I set a meeting with Kim, and I'm nervous and I'm scared and I'm sitting across the table, and for the first time comes out of my mouth, Kim, I did this thing in my kitchen with my daughter, and we did this and we did that, and it was really successful, and the neighbors loved it. And I'm sweating, and everything's a mess because it's the first time I'm sharing those things out loud with anyone. And so, what I see a lot, and especially with women, is it's not a lack of knowing that their ideas are good. It's not a lack of it's not that they haven't done the research. It's a lack of conditioning. It's that they haven't
Mhm.
said these words before. It's that they haven't rehearsed practicing what it feels like to say these wins, to share these wins. So practice on your friends, practice on your coworkers, practice on your neighbor, practice sharing wins out loud in small stake situations so that when you are in the big meeting, in the big pitch, in the big conversation, you've already built those neural pathways. Your brain is already used to those words coming out of your mouth. Don't let it be the first time when the stakes are high. It's never going to feel good otherwise.
So, Hannah, along those same lines, and that's such good advice for practicing our wins and how to be comfortable sharing them. But talking about the active pitching and getting your elevator pitch ready, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
on the phone with a producer or a journalist, or you're walking into a big investor meeting, or you're just pitching yourself because you're asking your boss for a raise or a promotion or something. What are some of the key takeaways that you think are really important for our listeners to think about as they try to prepare their own pitch?
Yeah. So I'll actually build on the last thing we just talked about. Part of the reason we get so hung up on self promotion is because the spotlight is facing us. We're so focused on we need to share this thing that we did, this idea that we have, when actually the research supports that some of the most effective pitches start with the spotlight on the person that's sitting on the other side of the Zoom or the person that's on the other side of the table. What problem are you solving for them? What value are you adding to them, right? What are the benefits of them having an additional conversation with you about this idea? So I love Kim's story. In this case, the people that are sitting on the other side are people that were worried about toxins in their makeup. They're people who feel like the shading is not matching their melanated skin. It doesn't feel good, right? These are the problems of her target audience. And by speaking to that and inviting that conversation of, I understand you, and this thing that I want to talk about is going to make your life better, is going to in some way improve your circumstances. If we start from that place, it just opens the receptiveness and the expansiveness to the conversation to actually continue. But if it's like a one-legged, volley of here's my idea, here's my idea, here's my idea, people are busy. They don't care. So we have to open them up to why is this for them first. And I think people forget that step and it hurts them.
I mean, I say that all the time, like, no one cares, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're all busy. We all have our own
Yeah, no one
lives,
cares.
but nobody
Yeah.
actually cares. But if you tell them what's in it for them, how am I going to make you rich? How am I going to make your life easier? Then all of a sudden, like, their ears perk up. And Kim, I'm wondering if you have, specific examples, or you remember certain moments where, you were able to succeed in those sort of situations because you were sort of delivering an elevator pitch that you think really worked in that moment.
Yeah, I think that. So it's kind of, I love what you said. I told you that about the don't try to mold yourself to the room. Um, and I bring that part back up to answer this question, is knowing what people need in the room is important, right? And how you come to deliver that, I think, is very important. Sometimes, to um, to Hannah's point, you're trying to deliver the message the same way every time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think being flexible and agile is so important, because and adapting to where you are. And so I do that all the time in my pitches. And so if I'm talking to one of my customers, it's all about her or him. It's all about them. Like, it's not about what I'm trying to tell them. I have to listen to them, because most of the time they're telling me the answer for them. Just
Mm-hmm.
if I listen, and I think that that's a big part. And when we have like a customer service issue, if I just listen, man, they're going to tell me the answer. They're going to tell me exactly what to do for them. They're basically telling me what's acceptable to them, what makes them happy. They're telling me if I listen. But if I just go at it with, oh, I know exactly how to cure this, versus trying to see, and everybody is so individual, that I think that part matters. So when I just think about, how we respond, and the best instances I've had in responding to folks, um, I remember one time I had a woman, she was so disgruntled, um, and upset. And I was trying to figure out, how some customers just like, I just give you a refund. Like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want no
Yes,
problem.
I do know exactly what
Like,
you're talking about. Yes.
you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you just like, look, it's not that serious,
Right. Like,
or anything. And yeah, like, let's just default to refund. And so um, I was in a situation like that where I was like, okay, I can just, and she ended up breaking down to me and telling me that she was going to do a divorce,
mm,
and she couldn't reconcile why her husband was leaving her. And just she told me more personal information. And the fact that I've had 14 years of listening to women every day doing their makeup and doing their eyebrows, like, women tell us stuff that they don't tell their own
Mm-hmm.
sister,
oh
right?
yeah.
Like, women indulge their makeup artists and their hairstylists into all of it. Like, we need therapy training is what we really need. But because I had that background, when she broke down to me and said, it's not about this brow powder, right? It's not, it's just like, it's really not about that. I'm really more upset about bigger things in life. And so when we ended up talking, we got done. She ended up purchasing more products, and she was just happy that I even listened to her, like, that I even took out the time with, and I think that that's what it's about. And so for our company, I always tell our team, and and everything, there's more mobility around listening to people, and more progress in that, than trying to just get our point across, if you know what I mean. And that's what I'm talking about, a collaborative brand. Is is the thing about, yes, I'm the founder, yes, I'm the face that you see every Friday night, yes, I'm pushing the brand, but at the end of the day, people know I'm here to listen and to make this better. And I think people appreciate that. And I've just seen it over and over again. If I can make a woman smile, then we've done our job. That's what I got in this business for. So yeah.
I love that. Hannah, any thoughts to add there? And another question that I'm sort of thinking through is, we've been giving some good advice actually on what not to do when you're presented in
Mm-hmm.
this position of pitching. And wondering if you have any other
Yeah.
ideas there about things people should avoid or be really aware of, to not do maybe when they're in the pitch situation.
Yeah, I love Kim's story. So I'll give one more example that I think is related to that, but maybe would give a different perspective. So, when I do trainings on, sales trainings for entrepreneurs and teams, and one of the things we talk about is knowing your landscape really well, which Kim just started to talk about, right? Not everyone has the same issues, not everyone has the same problems. Sometimes I work with teams and they're like, well, I don't really know what people are dealing with. I don't really know what's going on in their world. And to that, I lovingly shake their shoulders and give some tough love and say, you should. You're not ready to pitch if you don't. You're not ready to have that conversation. So, just concrete example, let's just say that one of us was a vacuum cleaner saleswoman. Back in the day, it used to be, oh, it has this bag versus bagless, or it's made out of, the hose is made out of this kind of plastic, or it's lightweight, it has this kind of handle, it has a ball, it doesn't have a ball, right? Shows how much I vacuum. I have a housekeeper, thankfully, but these were the things that used to matter. Nowadays, if you're trying to make money, if you're trying to pitch somebody a vacuum, they can Google that stuff. Google that stuff in 2 seconds. Nowadays, if you want to sell vacuum cleaners, you know what you do? You ask more questions. To Kim's point, you say, do you have a dog? Does that dog shed? What kind of hair do they shed? Is it fur? Is it hair? Do you keep your windows open? Do you have carpet? Do you have hardwood floor? Do you live in an area where there's pollen in the spring? So the smart vacuum cleaner salesman or woman or salesperson is now going to understand their landscape really well. They are in the home cleanliness business, right? That's what they do. So if you're going to be effective in your pitch, you cannot get hung up on just your thing. You have to understand the entire context. And so something somebody can do better as far as action steps is if you haven't taken the time to ask the questions, to listen at a really deep level, like Kim said, about what do your customers really want? What do they complain about? What is frustrating? What are their dreams, their desires? You don't know those things inside and out. It's too soon to pitch. You still got some work to do ahead to be effective in your pitch.
You have to do your research. You have to know what, your target audience, because if you don't,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, it may land, but it probably won't. Even if it does land, it probably won't have the same impact that it could have had you done that research. So, as a final
Right.
question to both of you, what is your number one piece of advice for making a memorable first impression?
Mm.
Kim?
Um, I got a lot of comments on that, but
Okay,
my number,
you can do more than one. That's okay.
I'm up here thinking like my number one to make you memorable. I'm kind of, this might sound cliche-ish, but it's kind of going back to being yourself. Like if you don't be yourself, then what happens is what they say, like the people that's looking for you won't find you. You'll end up going with the wrong people. It's almost like catching the wrong ride. You know what I mean? They're not going to the same destination that you're going to. It's like catching the wrong train, right? In the city. Like it just, so I think that my number one memorable thing is to be yourself. And then number two that I find, I see Judy in the comments. Judy said, with an IE, I'm going to introduce myself as Judie. That's right. That's right. We will not let the wise dominate us. So the IE, and so I would say definitely introduce yourself in a compelling way. But then also something else that I found that has been helpful that people sometimes don't expect is when you say something like, and so how can I support you, or what's one thing I can do for you today, like that sort of give situation without merit of even knowing anybody longer than 5 minutes of introducing yourself or what have you, but some kind of way to where you can help them. That it might be as simple as, can you go comment on my LinkedIn post, because I'm trying to build up my engagement, and like that's just like a simple thing you can go do real quick, do it, and then you're done or whatever. So I think that what another thing that makes you really memorable is that if you put some type of give out there that's really easy, what's one thing I can do for you today, And because sometimes if you just say to people, what's something I can do for you, they get really bogged down in everything that they need done in their life. But if you say, what's one thing I can do for you today, that will make them decide on one thing, tell you what that is. You do that, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember that person that said that, because most people don't say that. And so I think that that's just something too that I want to add, that could make you very memorable. And that's going back to the place of, it's not all about you. It's about what you did for the other person, and the person is going to remember what you did for them more than just you. And because I could tell you to show up with fabulous makeup, make sure your look is great, make sure you dress nice, all of that, and they might remember that in that moment. But what they will not forget is, one, you showing up as yourself, and then two, you giving them something that they're going to remember that.
Love everything you said. 2 points. A friend of mine's mentor said to her, which I think is such great advice, you want people to listen to what you're saying, not looking at you. And so yes, like look great, do all of that, but when you're really wanting to move people's opinions and get them to come on board, you want them to be listening to what you're saying, not focusing on anything external. And I think that's kind of like where you were going with that a little bit. And then I think to your point, like, be a person, right? We're all people. The struggle is real. Like, if we can just be authentic and in our human connection, I think it actually really does go quite a long way. Hannah, your number one piece of advice for making a great first impression.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little avant-garde here. So +1 on everything that Kim said. I will add something very tactical, a tactical tip that I hope everybody can try and apply right away. And that is this: attention is a currency. People do not have a lot of it right now. They don't want to give it to us. What little bit they will give us will run out really, really, really fast. And when we are pitching people, unless they are really excited about this pitch conversation, they're like, "Ooh, somebody has something and I want it," which is, this much of the population. Usually we're working hard on that pitch, right? Unless they're really excited about it. For most people, when we are coming to them with a pitch, they have a little bit of this zone of resistance up. They are preparing for the reasons that it's going to be more work for them, the reasons it's not going to be a good idea. They're half listening. They're just thinking about the meeting they just came out of. So one of my favorite underrated techniques for the very beginning of a pitch is a pattern interrupt. Swing at them with a pattern interrupt, something unexpected. And the reason is twofold. A, it snaps them back to attention. I'll give you an example. Snaps them back to attention. And B, it immediately humanizes you to the other person. So example, I had a client, she's 4'10" with shoes on, right? Like with heels on. And so she went into a meeting, and the gentleman she was pitching to said, "Okay, what are you going to tell me about today? What do you do for a living? What do you do all day?" And the first thing she said was, "What do you mean, in addition to playing for the NBA?" And the guy lost it, was laughing, was clutching his belly. And immediately they were bonded, they were connected. The oxytocin was flowing, they were laughing together. And that wall of resistance, that zone of resistance that he had up, he was ready to kind of like dismiss her, immediately went down. And she was able to more effectively go into the rest of her pitch, which she obviously put a lot of thought and effort into. But if I could give one tactical tip, it's play with the pattern interrupt. We are all squirrely, distracted, and busy. Don't assume people are paying full attention to you at all times. They're not. So try to get a little creative, inventive. It's got multiple benefits.
I love that. I'm going to definitely remember that and remember all of this great advice today. Thank you both so much. We have time for some questions. If there are questions, please drop them in the live chat and we would be happy to answer them. Go through here and see if anybody. Thank you all for writing such great, nice comments.
Yes. And I must say, I'm excited about the pitch competition tomorrow. I was last year's winner, since we're talking about it's not bragging if it was real. And so I'm excited about the pitch competition tomorrow.
And Annie, while we're
That's
waiting for
so
questions,
great.
we should also just throw out there, the three of us are active on socials. So, please find us if you've got more questions or thoughts
Yes.
or feedback. We'd love to continue the conversation. I don't want to speak for the other two, but I think we all agree that we'd love to know all of you.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I'm on LinkedIn. Kim Roxy.
Yeah,
You know how to
LinkedIn
spell
for me
it.
too.
So
I'm going to put
We can
email in the
drop them
chat
in the
too, in
chat.
case anyone wants to. Yeah. I think I know we all feel that way. If anybody here wants to connect or learn more about our businesses, our personal brands, we would love to be connected with each and every one of you, because I know we all are deeply invested in helping other women and making sure that we succeed as entrepreneurs and business leaders. So, all right. Well, it looks like that's it. Henna, Kim, this was such a pleasure. Really nice to meet you both. And I hope we can all stay in touch and
yeah, I could kind of talk to y'all even longer.
I know.
Yeah,
This is sort of like a mastermind in a way.
It
absolutely.